Chapter 511, Encountering Familiar Faces. In the middle of the day, Tang Xiu met a happy Li Laoshan, but what made Tang Xiu at a loss whether to laugh or cry was Li Laoshan's entire grand parade of 16 bodyguards in black suits and black sunglasses, who greeted and escorted him just as he came to hotel entrance. The scene was so strange that it garnered the attention of many people, thinking that there was a movie in the making. "Old brother Li, can you at least act low profile?" Tang Xiu, who was wearing a casual outfit with a duckbill cap, added large black sunglasses on his face. Dressing up like that was mainly due to what had happened in the morning, when he accompanied his aunt, Tang Min, to stroll around shopping. At that time, he had to go through a bitter experience of being surrounded by tons of people. After all, this time was completely different than the days in past. Firstly, it was because the footage of him singing while playing the zither at the Shanghai University's freshman welcoming party, and secondly was because of his identity as the young divine doctor who rendered medical services at Star City Chinese Medical Hospital, which resulted in him becoming a celebrity. No, that was not entirely accurate. He was now even hotter than a celebrity. Because every person, be it an 80 years old or a teenage, always greeted him as long as they were able to recognize him, asking for his signature and requesting to take pictures together. Moreover, the number was simply too big to count. "Well, there's nothing I can do about it, brother Tang," said Li Laoshan with a grin. "I brought Yucheng's sword with me, thus I'm afraid that people with crooked thoughts will come after it. By the way, it's you that's making me feel strange. Why are you looking like this? If I wasn't familiar with you, I really wouldn't have been able to recognize you. I dislike the fact that my appearance doesn't look low profile enough, though," Tang Xiu forced a smile. "I've been run in tough situations whenever I go outside ever since that footage of me giving medical services at the Star City Medical Hospital got uploaded to the internet. There's always someone recognizing me whenever I come out. I really wish I could go to H country and have a facial plastic surgery or something like that." Li Laoshan burst into laughter. "I did watch the footage of you giving medical services at Star City Chinese Medical Hospital. I really liked it. Especially about the dialogue saying that you would donate money, it quite touched my heart. This old bro of yours may be a layman in medical terms, but I also have a heart. Hence, I donated 1 million yuan to the Star City Chinese Medical Hospital's relief fund. Besides, the Star City Chinese Medical Hospital's website has just featured their relief fund page, and it's really great. It's transparent enough to make all donors with goodwill and intention feel relieved. About that, it was kinda unintentional intention, to be honest," said Tang Xiu with a smile. "Anyways, let us not talk about this subject anymore, alright? What about the upcoming underground auction? Where will it be held? The venue is in a very covert place, you'll simply be unable to imagine. Okay, follow me. There's less than 2 hours away from the auction now. If we hurry up we'll be able to get there before 2 p.m. Yongding River. It was one of the main tributaries in the High River system in Beijing, as well as the largest river flowing through the city. And this very underground auction was going to be held in this river. Old brother Li, are you not mistaken? Are we really going to take this small wooden boat to participate in that underground auction?" On the bank of a certain part of the river, Tang Xiu wore a strange expression as he gazed at the dozens of small wooden boats along with the burly men in black suits before him. Tang Xiu's expression was that of disbelief when he asked, "What do you think? You never expected it, right?" Li Laoshan grinned. "Every underground auction is organized by the Situ family. This year's trick is just similarly impressive and didn't disappoint me. Do you see that rowing boat in front? I know them, and they also came to participate in the auction." Tang Xiu gazed to the front, as he nodded and sighed, "This is indeed impressive. The people from the Situ family truly use their brains. Let's go. We might as well go directly to the auction venue since we're already here." I really want to see it. As Li Laozhan let out a faint smile and walked shoulder to shoulder with Tang Xiu to board the boat, the guards there stopped them. A burly man then checked Li Laozhan's invitation and said, "Mr. Li, you can only bring 3 people on board." "I know." Li Laozhan nodded and boarded the boat together with Tang Xiu. He motioned for 2 bodyguards to board as well, and then the boat moved toward the far side of the river. About 10 minutes later, the action venue finally entered Tang Xiu's sight. He gazed afar at the wide river channel. There was a half-meter-high platform that had been temporarily built on the river surface. It was surrounded by a row of boats at its 4 corners, each of which was tied with iron chains, while the 2 of them were lined up to the shore. "Brotherly, seeing this spectacle kinda makes me dizzy," said Tang Xiu while shaking his head. He looked at a loss as he couldn't help commenting with a sigh. Li Laozhan himself felt rather novel as he chuckled and replied, "This is indeed interesting. Just look at those boats. Many people there look familiar, and a few of them are acquaintances. By the way, we'll be late to get there, so I'm afraid we'll have to take the back seats. But it's all right, though. It won't affect our bidding whatsoever. I followed you just to look around and see the financial resource contests between you and the guy who tried to get your Yuchong sword." Tang Xiu shook his head. "Besides, this auction probably won't have many useful items for me. Anyways, if the funds you prepared are not enough, I can lend you some."
"Ah.
"You're joking with me, brother Tang." Li Laozhan couldn't help laughing and grinned. "Though your magnificent Tang may have made quite a lot of money recently, there are still many places that will need your money, so forget about lending me. Relax. I have prepared sufficient funds this time. If it exceeds the budget I've prepared, then I can still sell the Yuchong sword at a high price. Are you really willing to give it up?" asked Tang Xiu with a slightly flickering expression. "I'm reluctant to do it, to be honest. Each thing has its own value, but the gains won't cover up the losses if we insist to buy it once the price exceeds its value," answered Li Laozhan. Giving him a thumbs up, Tang Xiu praised him for old brotherly to be able to let it go. "You really are a person with good spirit. Pity that there's no wine now, though. Or else I would have offered you a toast to you as a token of my respect." With a strange smile, Li Laozhan replied, "Who said there's no wine? I dare say that someone will send us wine within less 3 minutes. Do you believe it? Someone will send us wine? Really?" asked Tang Xiu, surprised. While pointing to several rowing boats, Li Laozhan smilingly said, "Do you see them? Those boats should be delivering teas, wine, and delicacies to the arriving guests. The people from the Sita family have something in common, that is, they seek to get along with everyone and secure their favor, as well as paying attention to everything concerned. I heard that every underground auction makes its guests feel at home." Just like he said, a small rowing boat drew near their boat a few minutes later. After a stalwart man tied the rope, he cupped his fist to Li Laozhan's group of 4 and said, "We welcome you to this Beijing auction. Also, our Sita family is currently inventorying the items that are going to be auctioned. If you also intend to auction something, you can take the registration form from me and give me the item. Then you will be asked whether you want to sell it or not after the item has been appraised." Li Laozhan took a rectangular wooden box from his bodyguard and handed it to the stalwart man. He filled in the form and signed the agreement, entrusting the item to the other party before he took the tea and wine handed by the man. Along with it was a tray of fruit bowls, desserts, and some other delicacies. The arrangement set up by the Sita family is great indeed. It's just that I've also heard about the big families in Beijing, but how could I have never heard about the Sita family among them? Asked Tang Xiu in a whisper after the other party left. The Sita family is part of the occult sect, and they only have a few clansmen. Even if the Sita family boasts a colossal wealth and possesses deep network and connections, their family has never involved themselves in politics. Moreover, they always kept a low profile, thus they are not famous. However, don't ever underestimate them, though. I dare say that the mid-sized families in Beijing are perhaps more or less the same as the Sitte family. They are that powerful? Commented Tang Xiu, surprised. For families who have managed to operate for 100 years, they have a very deep foundation. The Sitte family itself has been in the business for more than 100 years. Rumor has it that this family kept their existence hidden during turbulent times, which greatly averted the losses of the family. The torrential waves of the Reformation time also didn't have much impact on this family. Hence, never underestimate the Sitte family, explained Li Laozhan. As he spoke up to their, Li Laozhan toned down his voice and continued, "Brother Tang, you're a martial artist yourself, so you should know that these families have more than just wealth in their possession, am I right? There's another huge factor here, that is the number and strength of martial artists in their families. And I heard that the Sitte family is also one of the big families built upon the foundation of martial arts. Each and every member of the family is a top martial arts expert. The guy just now has a rather good ability. Perhaps you're just slightly weaker than him, old brother Li," said Tang Xiu with a nod.
Ah.
Don't mention me, brother Tang. I know my ability is insufficient and even disgraceful. Li Laozhan looked embarrassed. In normal times, I can barely deal with small thugs, but I would definitely be knocked down with 3 fists and 2 kicks if I were to encounter a genuine expert. Tang Xiu only gave out a faint smile in response. Time passed by, and 2 p.m. finally came. More boats kept coming, the numbering more than 100. In other words, there was at least 100 guests attending the auction this time. "It's almost time," said Li Laozhan while touching Tang Xiu's arm after he saw a woman in a crimson-colored coat, leather boots, and dress stepping onto the platform built in the middle of the river. Tang looked up ahead and his expression suddenly turned blank. How could she be here? Tang Xiu rubbed his eyes and was finally sure that his eyes weren't betraying him. The woman in crimson attire was Ouyang Lulu. However, his astonishment was not over yet, for there was another person he had never imagined would appear here. That person was someone he was very familiar with. The one he once hated, felt hostile toward, and wished he could hit her. "Brother Tang, my adversary is coming," said Li Laozhan in a low voice while touching Tang Xiu's arm. Chapter 512, Disparity. The late boat was also boarded by 4 guests. 2 of them were obviously bodyguards judging from their attire, while the other 2 was a man and a woman. The man was bald with a sparkling gold chain around his neck and was wearing a faint smile on his plump face, while the woman was elegant and beautiful, donned in a professional dress. Tang Xiu's eyes only stayed for a moment on the bald middle-aged man, as he gazed then shifted to the woman. He had a deep relationship with her. Wang Daoyuan, the owner of Beijing's high-rise construction. Li Laozhan squinted his eyes and looked at the approaching party, as he touched Tang Xiu's arm and whispered. Tang Xiu couldn't care less about who the other man was. What he cared about was why would Su Yanning appear next to Wang Daoyuan, and even donning a professional outfit. As the boat drew near, Wang Daoyuan then took a cigar box from his bosom and took out 2 cigars from the inside. Right as the 2 boats were only 2 meters away from each other, he threw one to Li Laozhan and clamped the other in his mouth while glancing at Su Yanning. He creased his brows, however, since his young secretary didn't even look at him, and instead was looking at the young man next to Li Laozhan. "It's him?" Wang Daoyuan's face flickered, since he could quickly recognize who Tang Xiu was. He immediately took out another cigar and handed it over to Tang Xiu, saying, "Brother Li, I never thought you knew Divine Dr. Tang. I may be a rough man, but the distinguished name of Divine Dr. Tang is akin to thunder in my ears." Though reaching out his hand to receive the cigar, Tang Xiu only gave Wang Daoyuan a slight nod in response. As his vision fell on Su Yanning, he then said in an indifferent tone, "If you have done enough crazy things outside, now scram and go home. I've been keeping the key to your house in Star City for you." Animosity suffused in Su Yanning's eyes as she indignantly shouted, "Our Su family doesn't need to be pitted by you. The winner is always the king and the defeated will become a bandit. That house is yours, and not ours. You still know that your surname is Su, huh? Then if you don't forget your ancestors, go and return to the Su village to see your grandmother if you have time. Xiangfei has been behaving great recently, at least he now understands what filial piety means. Tang Xiu coldly snorted and replied. Whether or not I understand what filial piety means is not your damn business. Su Yanning angrily rebuked. Tang Xiu sighed inwardly as he turned to look at Li Laozhan and Wang Daoyuan, who looked at them with a strange expression. He then spoke to the two men lightly. I have to tell the two of you that unexpected things may happen at any time. For misfortune and happiness may come to someone in the morning or evening. Life has never been easy to anyone, yet if enmity is not settled amicably, there will be no end to it. No matter if you two will get what you want today, I hope that the two of you will live in peace together later. When this auction is over, I invite both you to dinner. I hope the two accept. Li Laozhan instantly realized the reason why Tang Xiu spoke these words. It was probably because of that batch of steel products. He gently nodded and threw a glance at Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan squinted his eyes and smilingly said, since it's the divine Dr. Tang himself that has spoken, I naturally won't refuse. But as the local snake in Beijing, it is I who must be the host tonight. No, tonight's banquet must be on me, for it can be regarded as me helping to resolve some minor conflicts, to begin with. You can rest assured. As a member of the Tang family, I can still afford to pay for a meal. A member of the Tang family? Wang Daoyuan was taken aback. His pupils immediately flickered as his round stature straightened up in an instant, and then smilingly replied, since it's a treat from Brother Tang, I'll be sure to bring the god's nectar I had just gotten with great difficulty. A hint of laughter could be seen on Li Laoshan's face as he said, Brother Daoyuan, since Brother Tang must treat us, it should also be him to treat us god's nectar. Besides, however many bottles you have, you won't be able to defeat him. Surprised, Wang Daoyuan said, is Brother Tang able to get god's nectar through his network and relations? Su Yanning was currently sitting next to Wang Daoyuan with eyes suffused with anger, but when she heard that, she whispered to him, Boss, he's the owner of the magnificent Tang Corporation. What? Wang Daoyuan's expression changed as he stared at Tang Xiu with disbelief. With his keen listening ability, Tang Xiu naturally could hear Su Yanning's words easily, as he chuckled and said lightly,
Yeah,
that's right. I'm the boss of the magnificent Tang Corporation. Shocked, Wang Daoyuan sized him up with a deep gaze, and then sighed, talented people will replace the old ones, and such excellent characters always come out in every decade. Brother Tang is still so young, yet you already have such a brilliant business. That's really not easy at all. Well, I'll have to thicken my face to have a drink with Brother Tang tonight. Also, that steel shipment belonging to Brother Li will also be returned to him tomorrow morning. A faint smile was Tang Xiu's only response to him. As for Li Laozhan, he cupped his fists and smilingly said, Brother Wang, we're in the same line of business, so I'm hoping that we can get closer and have more cooperation later on. Sure thing, said Wang Daoyuan with a smile. After saying that, he turned to look at Su Yanning while secretly pondering what relationship his young secretary had with Tang Xiu. Intelligent as he was, Tang Xiu was able to guess what Wang Daoyuan had in mind from his expression. He then smiled lightly and said, Old Brother Wang, since my naive and insensible cousin is working in your company, I hope you will take care of her well. You don't have to care about my face later if she doesn't perform well and you've to fire her. Besides, I already have some arrangements for her later. Mind your own business. Su Yanning glared angrily at Tang Xiu. Startled, Wang Daoyuan's mind whirled. His face was immediately covered with a smile, as he cupped his fists and said, Rest assured, Brother Tang. I'll definitely treat her well while she's working in my company. Originally, Wang Daoyuan was quite interested in this young secretary of his who was quite capable and hardworking, and was also planning to take her to bed after a period of time. But today, after he learned her relationship with Tang Xiu, he instantly dropped the idea. If Tang Xiu was merely a miracle-working doctor in Star City Chinese Medical Hospital, or even only the boss of the magnificent Tang Corporation, he wouldn't be afraid. But Tang Xiu's another identity as someone from the Tang family of Beijing was something he would never dare to provoke. As for Su Yanning, she shifted her eyes to Wang Daoyuan and looked at Tang Xiu again while feeling quite bitter inside. Originally, she thought that she would certainly be able to get a handsome paycheck from the high-rise construction company in the future due to her recent diligence and ability, thus obtaining a good career. Even if she left the high-rise construction group in the future, she would have amassed a lot of capital to regain the past glory of her Su family. At that time, she would have a powerful foundation and capital to stand before Tang Xiu, to make him understand that he could not bully her family that easily. She would stand before him, making him regret what he had done to her parents. However, at this time, she realized that she was literally not an existence that was on par with Tang Xiu whatsoever. Even if she were to go all out and work herself to death, that was a height that was nearly impossible for her to achieve. After all, even her boss, who was proud to the bones, was almost flattering Tang Xiu about his performance. That attitude was way too humble. This won't do. I must never give up. Su Yanning clenched her fist and shot a cold look at Tang Xiu before she turned her eyes away. At this time, on the platform built in the middle of the river, Ouyang Lulu held a row of pallet behind her as a beautiful woman then nodded to her. Then, she picked up the microphone, looked around and said with a beaming smile, "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome and thanks for participating in the 181st Capital Auction. It's my honor to have been invited by the Sita family to host today's auction. By the way, I'm Ouyang Lulu, a public figure from Jiangmen Island. The time is already ripe for this auction to start. I know that everyone who has come here today, each and every one of you is a respected figure with fame and prestige. So I will not waste your precious time. I hope that all of you will be able to buy what you want in this auction. Thus, without further ado, I now announce that the 181st Capital Auction begins now. The first item to be auctioned today is the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal. This imperial seal is a token symbolizing the highest authority during the period of the Qin dynasty, as well as a treasured item that is comparable to China's national treasures. The floor price will be 100 million, and the bid to increase is at 1 million, at least. And now, let the bidding start. Just as Ouyang Lulu's voice fell, the people on the hundreds of boats looked shocked. They had never expected that the first item to be auctioned would be the imperial jade seal of the Qin Emperor, which was also a national treasure. It had to be noted that the first item to be auctioned in a general auction would usually be a decent one, and the top finale was usually placed on the last three or even the last one. Could it be that there were more precious things than the Qin Emperor's imperial jade seal? 101 million. 102 million. 105 million. Indeed, the guests who were eligible to participate in this capital auction were all great figures with identity and wealth. Tang Xiu heard from Li Laozhan that the people who had the qualifications to attend this auction must be recommended by at least 2 people who had participated in the auction before. Even the applicants must possess a wealth exceeding 1 billion yuan, and each of them could only bring 3 people to accompany them. Because of this reason, the auction of the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal caused many to set their eyes on it, making the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal price to steadily increase. Tang Xiu shook his head. He didn't have much interest in the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal. The purpose of his visit to this auction was to help Li Laozhan and Wang Daoyuan resolve their conflicts, and at the same time, protect Li Laozhan's Yuchong's sword from being robbed. Nonetheless, there was something that Tang Xiu still wanted to discern. What was special about the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal to think that its floor price was set at 100 million yuan? His vision then passed to the back. And when he saw the seal made of bronze, he couldn't help but exclaim inwardly about how strange humans' thoughts were. Although men tend to collect things whether the world is chaotic or prosperous, yet those things wouldn't be able to help them. But buying it like staking 1,000 pieces of gold on one throw was totally bizarre, for it was simply like throwing money away. Huh? Tang Xiu suddenly creased his brows as he sensed a spiritual chi of heaven and earth all of a sudden. A moment just now, it was even probably richer, and there was a fluctuation of a very special aura that seemed to have come out of nowhere. What happened, exactly? He looked around, yet he didn't see anything peculiar on anyone. He instantly released his spiritual sense and enveloped a 200 meters radius. After 2 seconds passed, Tang Xiu observed the drifting spiritual chi of heaven and earth that was slowly rising toward the Qin Emperor Imperial Jade Seal, in front of Ouyang Lulu. It turned out to be the cause of that fluctuation. This Imperial Jade Seal. Tang Xiu hesitated for a moment. Then, he instantly covered the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal with his spiritual sense and tried to slowly penetrate its interior. Chapter 513, The Power of Fate and Destiny. The Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal was placed atop the table in front of Ouyang Lulu. The seal that was made of quality bronze was as though it had not been eroded by the passing years, and seemingly looked bright and clean. The moment his spiritual sense seeped into its interior, a dimensional space appeared within the void as a torrent instantly devoured Tang Xiu's spiritual sense. Puff. Tang Xiu, who was sitting on the boat while examining the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal with his spiritual sense, suddenly contracted his pupils. He spurted out a mouthful of blood and his complexion turned ghastly pale. At the side, as Li Laohan saw Tang Xiu's appearance, his complexion greatly changed. He hastily grabbed Tang Xiu's arm to prop him up and quickly asked, "Brother Tang, are you all right?" With eyes staring fixedly at the Imperial Jade Seal, Tang Xiu was as though unable to hear Li Laohan. At this time, stormy waves were currently raging inside his heart. Never once did he expect that a void space had actually formed inside the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal, more so that a tremendous amount of power of fate and destiny was residing there. The power of fate and destiny is a very mysterious existence, for it is ethereal, invisible, as well as imperceptible. However, it affects everything in the universe at all times and everywhere. Either a sentient or an object. Each and every person has the power of fate and destiny. Those who are lucky will have a stronger power, and those who are plagued by misfortune have less of it. Every country also has the power of fate and destiny within them. Prosperous countries have a strong power of fate and destiny, while the weaker ones would have either a broken one or a weak power. The power of fate and destiny represents part of the heavenly Tao or the manifestation of God's will, affecting the path of myriad things. Being full of this power would ensure good fortune and auspicious omens, resulting in the power overflowing throughout the country, strengthening and making it prosperous. During his time in the immortal world, Tang Xiu had visited too many countries and continents to count, and experienced countless dynasties rising and declining, during which he obtained numerous treasures from them. But he had never seen nor heard of any object that can contain the power of fate and destiny. Not even once had he ever thought about some one-sided revelation from the god's realm, which was said that the power of fate and destiny could form such a visible shape akin to flowing water whenever it had reached a certain extent. It's limitless and immeasurable. The amount of this power of fate and destiny is akin to an ocean. How powerful could this power of fate and destiny be to form such a shape? Tang Xiu's heart was shaken by this shocking discovery, and had difficulty calming himself down. At this moment, his eyes were burning hot as he fixed his gaze at the Imperial Jade Seal. He must get it. He must obtain it regardless of the cost. He once received a revelation from the god's realm, thus he was perfectly aware of how precious this power of fate and destiny was. Even in the god's realm, this object was something countless deities dreamed of. Tang Xiu must obtain it despite being unaware of what effects it could bring. 280 million. 300 million. 310 million. Its price kept rising, and at least a dozen great figures who were interested kept bidding. However, he was still very cautious about the increasing the bid despite having a lot of funds he could use at will. Yet the price didn't seem to be increasing very high at all. 1 billion. Tang Xiu took Li Laoshan's bidding sign and shouted in a deep voice. Whoosh. On over 100 small boats, various wealthy and powerful figures turned their eyes to Tang Xiu. The vast majority of them were able to recognize him as Tang Xiu, the young divine doctor of Star City Chinese Medical Hospital. Therefore, regardless of whether Tang Xiu's quote was too high or not, most of them didn't want to offend Tang Xiu, the young divine doctor, hence the disappearance of 90% of the bidders. On the platform in the middle of the river, however, Ouyang Lulu suddenly felt joyous inside after hearing 1 billion bid. However, she felt that the voice was very familiar, thus piquing her curiosity. After following the direction of where everyone was looking, disbelief instantly filled her eyes. How could it be Tang Xiu? She rubbed her eyes to make sure they weren't betraying her, as a dazzling smile then immediately covered her flawless, beautiful face a moment after. 1.1 billion. 1.2 billion. 1.201 billion. The bidding only stopped for 10 seconds before it picked up again. However, the number of bidders was reduced by 80%, leaving only 4 people still competing. 2 billion. Tang Xiu once again raised his hand and called. Whoosh. The crowd fell into turmoil as the guests began to whisper. The miracle-working Dr. Tang seems to be determined to win this Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal. He dares to bid 2 billion for it. Does he really have so much money at his young age? Divine Dr. Tang and that fellow Li Laoshan are together? Could it be that Li Laoshan is trying to help Tang Xiu? But then again, it would be too costly, and would he even be willing to spend 2 billion for him? Could it be that Li Laoshan's closest person is sick or something? Oh dear. That's an outrageous deal. I thought the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal would be sold for 1.8 billion at the most. I didn't expect that Tang Xiu would actually increase the price so crazily. Surely he isn't holding hands with the Situ family? Arg, forget it. Tang Xiu is a divine doctor, after all. Who never had his family members get sick? If we get into his bad graces now, he may refuse to help us later. I don't think it's worth the price. Forget it. Forget it. Nobody started bidding again amid the animated chattering. On the platform, Ouyang Lulu took the microphone and said with a beaming smile, "Everyone, I really didn't expect that today. Ouyang Lulu's sweetheart would actually come here. He even so boldly burned such a great sum of money just to buy the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal. However, I believe his vision, so this Qin Emperor Imperial Jade Seal is absolutely a great object. Any one of you still wants to compete with my sweetheart? If not, then I want to thank everyone for helping save the family money." Just as her voice fell, everyone burst into laughter. Many loudly teased Lulu. Lulu, however, was unperturbed, and unceasingly cupping her fists toward everyone instead, while repeatedly nodding her head in acknowledgement. Tang Xiu could only wryly smile as he was at a loss whether to cry or laugh, upon seeing Lulu's smiling face as well as all the fuss in the surrounding. He was already aware of her wild horse-like character, as well as her fiery and unconstrained personality. But now, this was practically the same way as touching his sore spot. Li Laoshan's laughter was particularly loud. He grabbed Tang Xiu's shoulder and loudly laughed, "Brother Tang, your luck with women is truly great. I've heard about this little princess of the Ouyang family. She's proud like a queen, and is bold enough to even shroud the heavens. However, I never thought she was this bold and straightforward. To think she dared to announce your affair in public. You really a blessed, buddy." A smile also hung on the corner of Wang Doyuan's mouth as he said,
Yeah.
"Your luck with women is truly great, Brother Tang." I never thought you would bump into your girlfriend here. Anyways, when you two get married later, this old brother of yours will surely send a great wedding gift. Two old brothers, would you please not to listen to Lulu's gibberish? We are just friends. Our relationship is nothing but purely friends. Humph, shameless. Su Yanning rolled her eyes to Tang Xiu as she whispered. Although Tang Xiu could hear her, he didn't feel like telling her the truth of the matter. After making up his mind and pretending not to hear it, he looked at Lulu and loudly asked, "Hurry up, there's no one else competing with me. Just quickly announce that the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal is mine." Ouyang Lulu took the microphone and said with a tender smile, "It seems that my family's Tang Xiu can't bear to wait. Since no one wants to compete with him, then this Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal belongs to our family. However, since we have yet to get married and I haven't gotten the financial authority to handle the funds, therefore I can only ask the staff to ask the payment from him. Next, we'll auction the second item." Laughter accompanied the beginning of the second item's auction. Then, a dozen items were auctioned consecutively. Their prices were not very high, as the item with the highest price was only sold for tens of millions. Below the platform, Tang Xiu also finalized the business deal with a member of the Sita family who came by rowing boat. After transferring the money via online banking, he then obtained the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal. "Brother Tang, I know that this Qin Emperor Imperial Jade Seal is indeed a treasure being handed down for generations, but was it worth it for you to spend 2 billion, said Li Laozhan, who came to look at the Imperial Jade Seal in Tang Xiu's hand. "The things I like are priceless. Since I have taken a liking to it, I don't care how much it costs," said Tang Xiu with a faint smile. Expressing his approval, Li Laozhan sighed in praise, "That's what I like from you." How absolutely true was that ancient wisdom. Something liked by a man, even 1,000 gold can never buy it, for it is priceless. Wang Daoyuan also repeatedly nodded and exclaimed his approval, "That's right. Living means to be alive, and it is up to us to spice up our own lives in a free and easygoing manner. Just buy whatever you like at once, and undertake your affairs in life and move forward happily. Though Brother Tang is young, you're more thorough compared to us. That's really admirable." "Two old brothers, you two are overpraising me," replied Tang Xiu with a chuckle. Su Yanning was unable to speak out anything about what Tang Xiu did. In her opinion, Tang Xiu's action was simply an act of a prodigal son. Despite feeling animosity toward Tang Xiu deep inside, yet she felt somewhat distressed. It was 2 billion. Prior to this, the Su family only had assets amounting to tens of millions, and she had already been proud and smug because of it. But she never expected that Tang Xiu would be this rich. It must be noted that half a year ago Tang Xiu was nothing but a poor and silly student. Not only did his family live a destitute life, he was also an idiot. But in less than half a year, he had undergone earth-shaking changes she was unable to fathom. Nevertheless, there was also a bit of regret inside her. She regretted treating Tang Xiu bad before. Had their relationship been better, their Su family would have been blessed with good fortune after Tang Xiu gained his abilities. Especially after Tang Xiu was discovered to be a descendant of the Tang family from Beijing. Had this fact been known to their family before, they wouldn't have given Tang Xiu and her aunt, Su Lingyun, a cold shoulder before, nor would they humiliate and persecute them, but rather flatter them. Is this the fucking train of thought of a human's heart? A bitter and astringent feeling rose inside Su Yanning's heart as she silently lowered her head. Although she did have a deep animosity toward Tang Xiu inside, yet she actually regretted it more, self-examining herself through a deep introspection. Chapter 514, 9 Phoenix Hairpin. The auction was progressing very slowly, and many of the auctioned items were sought after by many people. As for Tang Xiu, he didn't participate anymore and just quietly sat beside Li Laozhan while fiddling with the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal. He really couldn't figure out why would such an ordinary-looking seal made of bronze have a space that contained a tremendous amount of power of fate and destiny. Regardless, he didn't worry about it too much since he couldn't figure it out yet. While fiddling with the seal, he also observed Su Yanning from time to time. Su Yanning may be someone he didn't like, but she was still his cousin, after all. If she can repent her for mistakes just like her younger brother, it would be a great and joyous surprise for his mother. After 3.5 hours, it was already 5:30 p.m., and the auction was nearly concluded. As a result of Tang Xiu's involvement in their issue, Li Laozhan and Wang Daoyuan both gave up auctioning the swords. After paying a penalty to the Sita family, the two treasured swords were brought back. On the platform in the middle of the river, Ouyang Lulu seemed to be in a very good mood. The item being auctioned now was a bluish-white porcelain vase burned in the royal kiln of the Ming dynasty. While holding the microphone, she smilingly said, "Wow, time flies quickly. I didn't expect the action to hit the finale so soon. Next will be the last 3 items, which I believe are definitely rare treasures and will bring tremendous luck and fortune to whoever can obtain them. The next auctioned item is an ornamental hairpin made of a special material of great quality. Due to the carving on it, it's called the Nine Phoenix hairpin. This hairpin is very unusual, and describing it as very magical and mysterious is not an exaggeration. Let me explain it to everyone. Firstly, it is made of an extremely hard special material. Even the owner of the item who entrusted it to be auctioned here has once tried to cut it with a laser, yet it was not scratched in the slightest. Secondly, the person who wears it can feel a magical effect. The wearer will be able to feel cool in summer and warm in the winter. Do you believe it? It's nothing but an ornamental hairpin, yet it's able to make the wearer feel cool in the burning hot summer, and feel exceptionally warm and comfortable amid the cold winter. As Ouyang Lulu spoke up to there, she observed the wide-open eyes and the looks of disbelief on the faces of the guests. Then, she loudly said, "Everything I've said to you is all true. I have worn this Nine Phoenix hairpin before, and it indeed made me feel very comfortable. The credibility and reputation of the Sita family are beyond question. Thus, without further ado, I now announce that this item will be auctioned with a floor price of 20 million, and no less than 1 million for each bid increase." After saying that, she looked at the crowd below. 20 million. 21 million. On the boat, Tang Xiu's body slightly shook after hearing the Nine Phoenix hairpin being mentioned by Ouyang Lulu. When his vision fell on the hairpin, he abruptly got up. Though his action garnered the attention of many people, they still focused their attention on the auction. 100 million. Tang Xiu called categorically. Immediately, 2 wealthy women who were also bidding changed their expressions, looking a bit annoyed. Yang Lan was a big boss of the Blue Garden Group with assets amounting to nearly 10 billion, and also possessed numerous businesses under her flag. It could be said that merely her wealth had already elevated her into the second-class powerful and affluent people in China. The most important of all was the fact that she was just in her 40s this year, and all her wealth was made by herself. After she saw the Nine Phoenix hairpin, the dazzling, golden bright ornamental hairpin attracted her so much so that she fell in love with it. Therefore, she made up her mind to purchase it even if must spend more budget on it. Who would have thought that someone would disrupt her plan? And that very person who did that was also unexpectedly the famous young divine doctor, Tang Xiu. She knew that Tang Xiu was rich, or else he wouldn't have bought the first auction item for 2 billion yuan. Nevertheless, she didn't want to give up the Nine Phoenix hairpin, and would do her utmost to obtain it. 200 million. An indifferent voice came out from her mouth. 500 million. Tang Xiu raised the bid again, causing some commotion in the venue. Yang Lan shot Tang Xiu a look, as she stood up and said, "Divine Dr. Tang, I'm curious about something here. You're a man, a respected and honored man at that. Why would you want to compete over the Nine Phoenix hairpin with me, a woman? This Nine Phoenix hairpin was originally mine, to begin with. Later on, I gifted it to a junior of mine, and she lost it afterward. So there should be no problem for me to spend some money to buy it back, no?" said Tang Xiu. It was once yours? Yang Lan frowned. After being silent for a moment, she gritted her teeth and said, 1 billion. If you can fork out more than 1 billion, I'll give it up. 1.1 billion, said Tang Xiu with certainty. Yang Lan could only smile bitterly as she shook her head and slowly sat back. At the end of the day, Tang Xiu finally obtained the 9 phoenix hairpin. After he received the 9 phoenix hairpin in his hands, there was a complex look in his eyes that continued for quite a long while. This 9 phoenix hairpin was indeed crafted by his own hands, a gift he presented to his lover, Shui Qingcheng, and was an immortal device of top quality. There was one thing that made him wonder, however. How this object appear on Earth. However, he could faintly guess that this matter should be related to Gu Yan. As of now, since he already bought the 9 phoenix hairpin, he would inquire Gu Yan about this after she woke up again. Brother Tang, was this 9 phoenix hairpin once really yours? Li Laozhan came while scratching his head and curiously asked. Yes. Not only was it mine, I was also the one who crafted it, said Tang Xiu with a nod. Only, there's something that makes me wonder. But then again, I already bought it back now, so I'm sure I can figure it out later. With a strange expression, Li Laozhan said, there seems to be quite a story in there. It does, indeed. But it's kind of a very private matter, said Tang Xiu with a tranquil smile. Upon hearing the reply, Li Laozhan nodded and stopped nagging about this topic. After all, Tang Xiu's personal affair was not something he could poke his nose into. He was just curious, Tang Xiu could even able to craft such an ornamental hairpin, more so that the workmanship was so exquisite. Following that, the second last auction item didn't pique Tang Xiu's interest. Although the price increased to hundreds of millions, he couldn't care less about it. On the auction stage, Ouyang Lulu had a complex look in her eyes. She could feel that there was something concerning Tang Xiu, a big secret deeply buried inside his heart. The fact that he spent quite a large sum of money to buy an ornamental hairpin today made her feel sour and edgy inside. After all, it's impossible for an adult man to wear an ornamental hairpin, so this object must be related to another woman. The final auction item is the dragon-seeking device. The person in charge of the auction didn't allow me to explain more about this item. Therefore, I will directly announce its floor price. The base price is 100 million yuan, and each bid increase must not be less than 10 million. Now, let the bidding begin. After Ouyang Lulu finished speaking, she picked up a compass-like object with a diameter of 20 to 30 centimeters. Huh? Dragon-seeking device? What the heck is that? The finale of the show is unexpectedly this unknown object? What are its origins and effects? What is the Situ family doing? Is this object something more precious than the Qin Emperor's imperial jade seal? This is ridiculous. Among the hundreds of rich people present, most of them were making a fuss about this. However, among the hundreds of small boats, there were 20 to 30 elderlies who stood up straight after the dragon-seeking device was announced. Even though the boats were swaying from side to side, those elderlies' figures were able to stand straight. Their eyes were burning hot as they stared at the dragon-seeking device. A minor magical device? Tang Xiu creased his brows, and felt it was somewhat accidental. It was because he barely saw any magical devices after returning back to Earth. Through his perception, he found that this instrument was made for the purpose of seeking and exploring a dragon cave, and was definitely a very precious treasure to those who engaged in feng shui. 200 million. 300 million. 500 million. 1 billion. The increase in price was akin to a rocket that rapidly soared to the sky. In just 5 minutes, the price of Dragon's seeking device had soared to 2.4 billion, with each bid not lesser than 100 million. Li Laozhan was dumbfounded as he stared at those old men, whose expressions varied. He gently touched Tang Xiu and asked in a whisper, "What the heck is this situation, Brother Tang? Who are these people? I noticed before that many of them hadn't taken part in the biddings, yet they are now acting like they had hot sauce splashed on their faces. To think that they are throwing such a terrifying amount of money, it gives me goosebumps. What exactly is going on here? It's a dragon-seeking device. It's used to search spiritual veins, spots with ominous or spiritual force, and it can also be used to find and explore ancient tombs very easily. To those who dabble in feng shui, this object is a very precious treasure. So valuable that it's almost comparable to their own lives and fortunes. You mean, they are feng shui masters? Asked Li Laohan, shocked. I dunno about that, said Tang Xiu, shaking his head. Li Laohan gulped down his saliva and no longer spoke. During their short conversation, the price of the dragon-seeking device had raised once again. And it was now at 3 billion. Old Ghost Shu, do you really want to have a fight with me? An old man glared at another elderly who bid 3 billion and asked with blazing anger. The elderly who was called Old Ghost Shu categorically replied, I would rather go bankrupt and lose everything for this dragon-seeking device. Great, just great. Just consider this your victory. The other party pointed at Old Ghost Shu and finally sat down with an unwilling expression. Old Ghost Shu then looked at the other two elderlies who were still trying to compete with him and spoke in a heavy voice. You may increase the bid as you see it fit. But you can be sure that I'll do everything to get this dragon-seeking device. However much you bid, I will take it. We have known each other for so many years, so you guys should know how important this dragon-seeking device is to me. The two old men exchanged looks, as one of them then unwillingly said, I bid 3.1 billion. If your bid is higher than mine, I'll give it up. 3.2 billion, said the Old Ghost Shu. The two men fell into silence for a while, before finally taking their seats. Obtaining the dragon-seeking device was also what they wished for, but they knew it was impossible to compete with Old Ghost Shu in terms of financial resources. Moreover, they were also aware of the fact that the dragon-seeking device was the Zhu family's heirloom around 200 years ago. Continue competing with him? They did have the ability to do that, and they would definitely be able to hold down Old Ghost Shu in terms of financial resources. However, they were perfectly aware that once they did that, a feud would be created and they would become mortal adversaries with Old Ghost Shu, as well as getting eyed by everyone from the Zhu family. Chapter 5:15, Experienced and Farsighted. The bidding for the last item, the dragon-seeking device, was very intense, and the price continued to climb until it was eventually bought by the old man Zhu at a sky-high price of 3.2 billion yuan. Thus officially ended this session of the capital auction. Tang Xiu didn't participate in the bidding for the dragon-seeking device. He could have as many low-grade magical devices as he wanted, so there was no need to spend a colossal amount of money to buy it. He was even confident that he could craft such a minor magical devices when his cultivation was promoted further. The appearance of the dragon-seeking device also made him see a business opportunity. He calculated inwardly that if such a low-grade magical device could be sold at the sky-high price of 3.2 billion, what if he refined dozens of such minor magical devices and auctioned them? As for Li Laohan, he squeezed Tang Xiu's shoulder and smilingly said, Brother Tang, the auction is over, let's leave. Besides, I don't have much interest in attending the evening banquet held by the Sita family. What Brother Li said is right. After every auction ends, the Sita family usually holds a banquet party to entertain the guests. However, there will be a very few pure businessmen attending such occasions. Those who stay to attend are all codgers from the occult sect. Eccentric people from the occult sect? Tang Xiu's expression moved as he suddenly said, 2 old brothers, I just bought 2 items here and nearly spent all of my money. Since they will treat us tonight, that helps me save a bit of money. How about I borrow this occasion to treat you to dinner? Of course, I also brought God's nectar, they're in the trunk of my car. There is 2 boxes there, and we'll drink 1 box tonight, while Brother Wang can bring the other one back home. Wang Daoyuan's look flickered as he smiled and said, God's nectar is the most precious gift one could receive nowadays. It seems like I really got a huge profit today. Thanks a lot, Brother Tang. Then, let us stay to attend tonight's banquet party. Since you guys want to stay, that's fine with me too, Li Laoshan shrugged his shoulders and smilingly said. Anyhow, Brother Wang, though we did have some conflicts before, it didn't impact us much, and there were no losses either. Without exchanging something, it's like we can't get acquainted well with each other, right? So, we shall have a good drink this evening. All right. I'll accompany you, laughed Wang Daoyuan with a loud voice. A small boat passed through the narrow channel between the rivers. It was Ouyang Lulu in her crimson attire. She stood on the bow with a smile hanging on her face. After her boat came near Tang Xiu's boat, she stepped on the bow and jumped directly to Tang Xiu's side. There's no need to question Ouyang Lulu's vision. If it's necessary to describe it in a word, there's only one appropriate word for it, great. Honey, I just realized that you're someone with extraordinary power, for your shadow has been behind all sorts of big events, said Ouyang Lulu, all smiling, while skillfully grasping Tang Xiu's arm. Can you not boast about yourself? Tang Xiu shook his head and chuckled. Be serious and tell me something, will you? How did you end up in Beijing this time? Becoming the host and auctioneer for the auction organized by the Situ family, as well. That means that Ouyang Lulu has extraordinary abilities, with her supernatural power and boundless magical force, hence obtaining fame across the country. That's not right. I should be well known to all folks around the world. Hence, the insightful and wise leader of the Situ family's plea for me to become the host and auctioneer, said Ouyang Lulu joyously. Do you want me to ignore you if you continue acting so narcissistic? Ranted Tang Xiu. Don't. Ouyang Lulu hastily waved her hand and said with a tender smile. Bah, you really don't have a sense of humor at all. Anyhow, the head of the Situ family, Situ Boyang, is my mother's foster father, so he can be regarded as my grandpa as well. Besides, my Paradise Manor is already open for business in Shanghai, so I don't have to worry about handling the management either, hence the reason I came to Beijing. Tang Xiu understood in a flash and asked with a smile, then, when will you return to Shanghai? I'm going back early tomorrow. That's right, when will you go back, too? I recall that school starts tomorrow, right? Well, I'll treat you to dinner tonight by borrowing the other party's banquet, because I'm gonna take a ride on your plane back to Shanghai. That won't be a problem for you, right? Said Tang Xiu with a smile. After glancing at Li Laoshan, Wang Daoyuan, and Su Yanning, Ouyang Lulu nodded and said, no problem at all. But you have to wait for a while, though. I gotta tell my grandpa first, and only then can we leave. Where are you going? Asked Tang Xiu. Huh? Aren't we going to dinner or something? Asked Ouyang Lulu back. About that, we're staying here and attending the Situ family's banquet party, said Tang Xiu with a chuckle. Ouyang Lulu stared blankly, before she immediately said with a joyful expression, that would be great. I'll introduce our grandpa to you later. He knows you already, and is full of praise about you. Tang Xiu was between laugh and tears after listening to her say, Lulu, can you not always say we, us, or our word? That's your grandpa, but I don't have any relationship whatsoever with him. It's all the same, all the same. Ouyang Lulu waved her hand with a colorful smile on her face. She immediately urged the crew to row to the shore. She even brazenly coiled her hands around Tang Xiu's waist without a shred of shyness at all, taking a ride on his car and rushed to the hotel that had been prepared by the Situ family for the evening banquet. As for Li Laoshan, he handed the Yuchong sword over to his bodyguards and sent them away. Wang Daoyuan also did the same thing. After he gave the ancient sword to his bodyguards, he took Su Yanning together with him to board Li Laoshan's car and rushed to the hotel. At first, Su Yanning didn't want to attend the banquet, but Wang Daoyuan already learned that she was Tang Xiu's cousin. Thus, in order to get along with Tang Xiu, he used both persuasion and threats until Su Yanning eventually compromised. At an international hotel in Beijing, the banquet party hosted by the Sita family was held in the ballroom on the 28th floor. Many of the guests who attended the auction had already arrived. The entire hall had been extravagantly arranged, as the crystal lamps illuminated every corner of the hall with its gentle lights. Wine and appetizers had already been served on the dining tables by beautiful waiters. And what made the arriving guests the most surprised was the 2 bottles of God's nectar placed on each dining table. Inside a deluxe room next to the ballroom, Situ Boyong quietly read the information. He was already past his prime, in his 60s, yet was still full of vigor. In front of him were 2 people, a middle-aged man and a woman, who calmly stood still with smiles on their faces. Lulu has performed well, father. Her glib tongue truly is a gift worth to showcase. Therefore, many items auctioned at the auction held by our Sita family were sold at very high prices, much higher than our expectations. Situ Chao handed the information to Situ Boyong and reported with a smile. With a satisfied look, Situ Boyong nodded and said, "It was great indeed." "That's right, you all came back here, but where did that child, Lulu, go?" Lulu saw her sweetheart and was eager to see him, so she went straight to him right after the auction concluded, answered Situ Chao with a forced smile. "Tang Xiu?" Situ Boyang's expression moved. Did that young divine Dr. Tang Xiu also participated in the auction? Yes. He bought 2 items for a total value of 3.1 billion yuan, said Situ Chao with a nod. 2 items? Don't tell me they are the first auctioned item, the Qin Emperor's Imperial Jade Seal and the 9 Phoenix Hairpin? Adding up these 2 items is exactly 3.1 billion yuan, said Situ Boyong, surprised. That's right, he bought exactly those 2 items, said Situ Chao with a smile. Situ Boyong nodded and smilingly said, "Anyways, I met your uncle Ouyang in Jingmen Island a few days ago. And I heard a lot of things about Tang Xiu from him. He's a very amazing young man. He is indeed quite amazing. In particular, the company he established, the magnificent Tang Corporation. Judging from the trend of its development, it's simply enviable and eye-catching. Furthermore, he's even a miracle-working doctor, it's simply beyond my expectation. That girl, Lulu, always sets her eyes high, and if this Tang Xiu was not remarkable enough, I don't think it would have been easy to get her impressed like this." Situ Boyong nodded. "Later on, when you come into contact with Tang Xiu, get along and closer to him if he's really that good." "But father, his identity is," Situ Chao hesitated. "I know that he hails from the Tang family, which means that his identity is very sensitive. But since our family must also survive in Beijing, it is inevitable that we must get closer to some families. The Tang family may have declined in recent years, yet a lean camel is still bigger than a horse. Once an outstanding junior emerges among the Tang family's offspring, I'm sure that it won't be impossible for them to bounce back to their heydays. Compared to the Tang family, the Yao family is just too powerful. Thus, even though we're trying to get closer to them, I'm afraid that... Well, forget it. Just do what I tell you." For a while, Situ Chao fell into silence before he slowly said, "Father, are you planning to get involved with the political struggles with all the domestic forces in the country?" "No, we won't get involved in it," said Situ Boyong lightly. "Then, what you meant just now is," pursued Situ Chao, doubtful. "Ouyang Lulu is my granddaughter. The young man she likes and the Ouyang family itself approves it. So, why do we have to refuse him just to avoid suspicion from others? Not to mention that Tang Xiu still has another identity as a divine doctor. If we deliberately keep distance, then it is us who got a problem here. Understand?" As a smart person himself, Situ Chao could instantly understand what his father meant. Although the Situ family wanted to get closer to the Tang family, it was perfectly understandable and justified. After all, there was a relationship between Ouyang Lulu and Tang Xiu, as well as Tang Xiu's another identity as a divine doctor. Even if getting closer to him meant that many parties were going to be annoyed with them, what was the problem with that? After giving it thought, Situ Chao nodded and said, I understand what to do, father. In the banquet ballroom. After Tang Xiu, Li Laozhan, Wang Daoyuan, and Ouyang Lulu arrived, they immediately attracted many people's attention, who came to greet them. Although Li Laozhan and Wang Daoyuan were not ordinary people, yet everyone there was of extraordinary status. They came greet them mainly because of Tang Xiu. Despite the fact that many of them had already learned that Tang Xiu was an offspring of the Tang family of Beijing, what people care about more was Tang Xiu's identity as a divine doctor. After all, when a person was still alive, who could guarantee that he would always be in good health? Hence, getting acquainted with a divine doctor only brought benefit and no harm.